All right. Good evening, everybody. Anybody?
Welcome.
Everybody and anybody.
We're here.
Welcome
We
to
did it.
Lives of the Saints, episode 23. I'm writing this out just so Grizz knows this. I'm writing it out. Lives of the Saints, the names of the saints, and the episode number for
Excellent.
you, my friend.
And I think I need to update our spreadsheet too. I don't think I've updated it in a couple of weeks.
Oh, well, it's kind of nice. It's easier to peruse on YouTube for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it definitely helps. And go back and say, what was that one? Who did we talk about? Yeah.
Yeah. And when I saw the names of the saints that you sent me this morning, I was like, oh, maybe this is one for our general too. Grizz.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
He's the general.
Yeah, we're doing. Yeah, right. Sorry, I missed the reference. Yeah, no. We have Saint Theodore the General and Saint Theodore the Recruit, and they are frequently pictured together in icons. And you'll hear how that's all intertwined and fun.
Yeah.
And then we have a bonus one if we get to it, because those are both a little short. So I have a bonus one of another saint. Since it's Saint Theodore night, I also pulled up Saint Theodore the Fool for Christ.
Oh, so, wow.
And we'll probably be able to get to it because these are shorter tonight.
Do you have any idea I'm assuming Theo has something to do with God. Like, do you know the etymology of the name Theodore by any chance? Since you're on to the name today.
Yeah, no, I'll look that up because I don't have that. Comes from the ancient Greek name Theodoros, which means a gift from God.
Welcome, Film Schmeiderei.
Oh, I would not have been able to say that one.
That's a German, Schmeiderei. Yeah.
Yeah, a gift from the gods, or a gift from God is Theodore. God-given or a gift from God.
Yeah. Cool.
So, yeah.
Should have known that. I bet you covered it because we did a Theodora, didn't we? Already?
Yeah, but I don't think we've talked about that much, like the names, the meaning of the names.
Yeah.
We probably should. I'll start paying more attention to that.
Yeah.
That's a good place to.
Well, the only reason it came to my mind was because you picked 3 of them. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be some reason for that.
Well, honestly, the reason. So I have a godson who his wife is very pregnant, and she's going to be having a baby any day. And the patron, his name will be Theodore, but he's named after Theodore the Recruit. And when I was trying to remember which Saint Theodore, I was just reading all of them. And then I texted him. I was like, which one? And he goes, Saint Theodore the Recruit. And I was like, oh, but I had just read Saint Theodore the General. And I was like, okay, that's it. We're doing the Theodore night.
Yeah. The General and the Recruit.
Yeah, the General and the Recruit, and probably the Fool for Christ. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah,
they're all gifts from God.
Yeah. Let's see.
So here's another question about the name. Are these their original names, or are these their baptized names?
Baptized names.
Okay.
Baptized names.
You know, when I first moved to Switzerland.
Generally, I think, well, you know what? That's a good question. It probably depends on the time. Like, the time,
the year. Yeah.
Because there had to be a first one of that particular saint,
Well, yeah.
So that's actually a good question.
Gregory of Nyssa.
Yeah.
Saint Macrina.
Well, I think the tradition before that was to give names from the scriptures.
But was there a Gregory somewhere? I don't think so.
No, that's a good point. Oh, shoot. I don't know.
Saint Basil?
That's a good question.
Saint Basil?
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know.
Ask your
priest. I don't know the answer to that.
Ask your priest about that.
I will. I will ask my priest about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
The poor guy, man, he's so overworked. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He basically ended up like kind of taking a lot of, he didn't work as hard last week, and this week he was supposed to be at a conference, and on Sunday he was like, I'm not going to the conference, but I'm not here this week. we still have over 100 catechumens. Our parish is growing. Our parish has probably tripled in size since I've been going there in 4 years.
And that's 4 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we used to have 2 priests when I started going there. We had 2 priests, and now we have 1.5 priests. Not because he's a half priest, but because
I was like,
or
what
that
did you
he's
do to
only
him?
half good. It's not that. No, he's in the military, and he's not officially assigned to our parish, but he does assist a lot. He comes in and helps with confessions and helps with some of the services if our main priest can't be there. But it's just, we're extremely busy. And when you have 100 catechumens that you're advising,
Crazy.
Plus confessions,
Yeah.
And plus the new inquirers, the people who want to meet with him, that want to learn more about
the old parishioners. What happens to them?
What we've learned is that you generally, I generally try to just stick with email, or I'll text him, or if I have a question, I might call him, because you can catch him driving a lot of times. So I'll call him and just say, hey, do you have a few minutes? And he'll usually be like, yeah, sure. What's up? But a lot of times, he's like, nope. So, so you end up writing him an email, and it sometimes takes him a few days to get back to you, but his replies are always thoughtful. I've never felt like he was just rushing or giving me the short answer or anything like that.
No, I don't think. How could he? How? Yeah, no.
Well,
if that's your job,
it would be a temptation, but it's not. He does not fall into that trap. He is very thoughtful and very.
Better to wait a few days and give a thoughtful response than.
Yeah, that's how we feel, and it's actually good because it kind of weans you off of constantly pestering your priest with stupid questions.
I got weaned off of that really quick.
Yeah, it's like just read the church fathers and ask your godfather or your godmother. Really, that's the purpose of having godfather and godmother, is to kind of catch a lot of those basic, because some questions are not pastoral. My godsons will ask me questions and I can handle most of them, but when it comes to particular a fasting rule or prayer rule, I don't, I'm just, it's like, you got to talk to Father Paul about that. I don't know. I can't change your prayer rule, but
yeah, I got an email today from a friend who I haven't spoken to since last spring. She just lives in town, but she got busy. I got busy, all that. And she had an email address that I didn't recognize. For some reason, I didn't have her email address. And then she signed it me. And I was just like, and it almost felt like a scam email.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, but they knew too much about me. And so I texted her because I have her phone number. I just got an email from, I think it was you. She's like, yeah, that was me.
That's odd.
But I was scanning it frantically, trying to find a name because I thought this could be from Megan, but I don't know,
Yeah.
Strangely enough. So
That's
anyway.
funny.
Yeah, there was something I wanted to say about the name thing now. Oh, I was going to tell you when I first moved to Switzerland. So there was for my mother-in-law, she's 94. Okay. For her generation, they had an official list of names that you could name your children. And you couldn't name them anything that wasn't on the list.
Wow.
So anyway, when I moved there, I had a daughter and her name was Eliza Jane. And that was a really difficult name for Swiss people to say because they don't have a J sound. They have a ch sound.
Oh, okay.
So, and they don't have a soft Z. They have a ts. So it's Ilica. And they don't, and the J, when they see a J, they say a Y sound.
Oh.
So it was like Ilica Jane or Ilica Chain, And so they all agreed, all these old ladies, they all agreed that I was going to have to change her name. I was just like,
yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? She was 3, it's like,
Wow. Yeah.
but I was stunned. Like and I think it was just like our generation that started being able to name names that weren't on that list.
Wow.
And they had first they had to be approved. And then by the village. The village had to approve your kid's name. Like if it
This
was
is
your
really interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Wow.
like, you've just got these repetitive names in Switzerland, probably in Germany
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hans and Jörg and,
Johann.
and the
Yeah.
first new names, interestingly enough, were Swedish.
Hmm.
Like they were so, and Europe was really identified by, like, so if the kid went to school and had a Swedish name, everyone assumed they were Swedish.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right.
And they were, because the rules had changed, he was Swiss with a Swedish name.
Wow.
Yeah, and then of course, the more of a melting pot that Europe became, the less they could enforce these rules, right?
Right. Yeah.
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 So
And
like
then the EU and then the money and all that stuff. Yeah. Like the national characters just kind of started going away. Right. Like
yeah, and I mean, I actually had an old calendar with the names, and they all have name days too.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
with the official list of names on their days.
Now, what was the official language of Switzerland? I mean, this not official language. Sorry, that was a funny question. The official religion. Like,
It's
did it?
both Catholic and Protestant.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Okay.
some cantons are strictly Protestant and some are strictly Catholic.
What is a planton?
Canton.
Like a canton.
It's a
Is that like a
state
county?
or a province.
Okay. Oh, okay. Like
But you also have to remember that there are 4 like very distinct cultures in Switzerland. So there's 4 official languages. There's Italian, French, Swiss German, and then Romansh, which is a very old Roman. Actually, it's one of the oldest spoken languages in the world.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it's only in a very small, little, tiny mountainous area called Graubünden. Roman.
Man, I'm learning a lot tonight. You're giving me all kinds of rabbit holes to go down.
Oh yeah, you're gonna love your mind will. Switzerland is really actually quite intriguing.
Yeah. Well, I've been reading more about the 30 Years' War because I realized how influential. I've just recently kind of learned how influential and how much effect it still has, even in America. And trying to and we didn't learn anything about it. Like I didn't even
The 30 Years' War.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
I don't know,
but not that I remembered. Maybe like in 9th grade or something. But I've been trying to reread about it now, and because it's related to what you're talking about. It's very interesting.
Well, 30 Years' War, does that have to do with Napoleon? I'm just really dumb, so just
no. It had to do with the no. It was after the Reformation. The 30 Years' War was which part of the Reformation is right. We should fight to the death over it. It was. I mean, I'm making light of it, but it was horrifying. It was horrible. Like 40% of Europe died. It died in this war. It was horrifying. And
was it mostly like the Protestants against the Catholics, trying to wipe out the Catholics?
No, it was different form. Well, it was that, and then different forms of Protestantism all fighting for supremacy.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then the treaty was basically, we're not going to kill each other over this anymore. It's not worth killing over. So whatever your king is what you are. Like you can basically, the agreement was like, if you are a particular religion, you can stay that, you can practice it in your home, but you can't convert other people to it, and you can't convert to other religions. Like you have to stay that your religion for the rest of your life. And all the babies born in a particular kingdom were baptized whatever the king was.
Whatever the king was,
yeah, whatever the king was. That was the religion. And that was, to me, I see it as a move toward nominalism. I think that was a big move toward nominalism.
And how about like identity politics?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And as a result, so anyway, so it still has an effect on American culture, I think.
I just watched, so I'm doing this Shakespeare class,
Mm,
and I found a series on BBC called Shakespeare, The Rise of a Genius.
mm,
And they try to piece through his life because they don't know much about him.
mm-hmm,
Um, it's just a 3, episode mini thing.
mm,
So it was really good, actually.
mm.
And they do it through his plays. Like they try to piece together his life through what
Oh,
he was writing about at what time and historically speaking. And so when St. James came along, like the St. James or King James, not St. James, sorry, King
yeah.
James
Mm-hmm,
came along, he replaced Elizabeth, I believe, right? And she was Catholic and he was Protestant.
mm-hmm,
Anyway, Shakespeare came from Stratford on Avon, and it was a Catholic county or something to that effect.
mm,
And James was trying to get rid of the Catholics.
mm-hmm,
And so he basically closed all the Catholic meeting places, churches and whatever. And then he made a decree that you had to go to a Protestant church on Sunday. Everyone had to go. And if they weren't there, if you were in the village but you didn't go, your name got put on a list.
mm.
And you usually didn't survive that
Wow.
list.
Wow.
You think COVID was bad?
Wow. Yeah. Right. Wow.
Anyway, and that's what happened to Shakespeare's daughter. And so
Oh.
he wrote, which play was it? King Lear, I think,
Mm,
as
mm,
a plea for, well, it was to honor him as the king, to give him his
mm-hmm,
rightful kingship and all that stuff. I think it was King Lear. And then it was also a plea for compassion.
mm,
And without directly asking him for his daughter's life, he was asking for his daughter's life.
sure.
And he her name got taken from the list, even though
Wow.
she never attended church in a Protestant church.
Hmm.
But like you like you're digging into this 30-year war, and you hear stuff like this, and it just makes you shudder.
Mm-hmm.
It's brutal.
Yeah. 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 It's yeah. I'm it's it's wild to, no matter what you start digging into in history, it's just like this endless, like,
Power struggle.
well, yeah, and there's layers upon layers upon layers of
Yeah.
complexity and interwoven influences and stories going on. It's endlessly fascinating
I
to
mean,
me.
honestly, if you think about it, we do live in a time right now, and after this, we'll get into the lives of these saints.
Yeah, sorry, you guys have
It's
been.
okay.
We're just BSing. Sorry, everyone in the audience.
Well, I think
We're
it's
catching up.
interesting. I think it's interesting. I mean, if it's not interesting, give us a thumbs down, and if it's interesting, give us a thumbs.
There we go.
But we do live in times where, thanks to probably the United States of America, people have freedom of religion,
Mm.
right? Because that kind of fell under the banner of like true democracy or something to that effect,
Yeah, liberalism. Yeah,
or liberalism. But
I
thank
mean,
God.
like classic liberalism. I'm talking like
Yeah. Okay.
John Locke liberalism.
Yeah, I don't know much about that, but
Mm.
I'm just grateful, that
Yeah,
you're not being forced to attend a church that you don't want to go to.
right.
Can you
Right.
imagine?
Yeah, yeah. No, I am very grateful for that. Yeah, I badmouth liberalism sometimes, but there are some good benefits to it, and that's one of them.
Mhm,
Freedom of being able to attend church wherever your conscience takes
mhm,
you, I think is worth. I think that's a beautiful gift for sure.
mhm.
Mm.
All right.
Otherwise, I'd still be Mormon.
Yeah, you might be forced by the state of Utah to attend a Mormon church.
Yeah, yeah,
Imagine.
yeah.
Those could have been the days, right?
Yeah.
Imagine.
That would have been that's very viable, very possible. I mean, I should say. So, okay. Should we do a prayer?
Yes, we should. Yeah.
Okay. Illumine our hearts, O Master, who lovest mankind, with the pure light of thy divine knowledge. Open the eyes of our mind to the understanding of thy gospel teachings. And plant also in us the fear of thy blessed commandments, that trampling down all carnal desires, we may enter upon a spiritual manner of living, both thinking and doing such things as are well-pleasing unto thee. For thou art the illumination of our souls and bodies, O Christ our God, and unto thee we ascribe glory, together with thy Father, who is from everlasting, and thine all holy, good, and life-giving Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen.
And wow. Upcycle. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Upcycle. Really appreciate that.
Real gift. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming and being here.
Yeah.
Without an audience, Sherry and I would still have a good conversation.
We would.
It's well, we enjoy sharing these things with you. It's. I was telling my brother today, we were talking about the need to create more and consume less, and this really helps me kind of move in that direction. It feels really great. I look forward to this every week, so I'm grateful you're all here. And I will share my screen.
I was going to do this. I did it.
Yeah.
It's like from my heart to yours, Upcycle.
There we go.
Yeah.
Remove the ambiguity
of
the gesture. All right. So first saint tonight is Saint Theodore the General. And we will get to Saint Theodore the Recruit after. He's commemorated on February 8th, which is this week. The great martyr Theodore Stradalets came from the city of Ukiah in Asia Minor. He was endowed with many talents and was handsome in appearance. For his charity, God enlightened him with the knowledge of Christian truth. The bravery of the saintly soldier was revealed after he, with the help of God, killed a giant serpent living on a precipice in the outskirts of Ukiah. The serpent had devoured many people and animals, terrorizing the countryside. Saint Theodore armed himself with a sword and vanquished it, glorifying the name of Christ among the people. Saint Theodore really reminded me of Saint George in a lot of ways. There's a very similar patterns in here.
This is going to be good. Before you go on, I just want to say this so you can remind me after, so I don't forget.
Sure.
But there is a thing in the air about nights at the moment, and so this is actually really, for me anyway, it's very pertinent.
Oh, glory to God. For his bravery, Saint Theodore was appointed military commander in the city of Heraclea, where he combined his military service with preaching the gospel among the pagans subject to him. His gift of persuasion, reinforced by his personal example of Christian life, turned many from their false gods. Soon, nearly all of Heraclea had accepted Christianity. During this time, the Emperor Licinius began a fierce persecution against Christians. In an effort to stamp out the new faith, he persecuted the enlightened adherents of Christianity who were perceived as a threat to paganism. Among these was Saint Theodore. Licinius tried to force Saint Theodore to offer sacrifice to the pagan gods. The saint invited Licinius to come to him with his idols so both of them could offer sacrifice before the people. Blinded by his hatred for Christianity, Licinius trusted the words of the saint, but he was disappointed. Saint Theodore smashed the gold and silver statues into pieces, which he then distributed to the poor. Thus he demonstrated the vain faith in soulless idols and also displayed Christian charity. That would be controversial today. I think some Christians would have a hard time seeing the charity in that act.
Yeah.
Saint Theodore was arrested and subjected to fierce and refined torture. He was dragged on the ground, beaten with iron rods, had his body pierced with sharp spikes, was burned with fire, and his eyes were plucked out. Finally, he was crucified. Varus, the servant of Saint Theodore, barely had the strength to write down the incredible torments of his master.
Ooh.
God, however, in his great mercy, willed that the death of Saint Theodore should be as fruitful for those near him as his life was. An angel healed the saint's wounded body and took him down from the cross. In the morning, the imperial soldiers found him alive and unharmed. Seeing with their own eyes the infinite might of the Christian God, they were baptized not far from the place of the unsuccessful execution. Thus, Saint Theodore became like a day of splendor for those pagans dwelling in the darkness of idolatry, and he enlightened their souls with the bright rays of his suffering. Unwilling to escape martyrdom for Christ, Saint Theodore voluntarily surrendered himself to Licinius and discouraged the Christians from rising up against the torturer, saying, "Beloved, halt. My Lord Jesus Christ, hanging upon the cross, restrained the angels and did not permit them to take revenge on the race of man." Going to execution, the holy martyr opened up the prison doors with just a word and freed the prisoners from their bonds. People who touched his robe were healed instantly from sicknesses and freed from demonic possession. By order of the emperor, Saint Theodore was beheaded by the sword. Before his death, he told Varus, "Do not fail to record the day of my death and bury my body in Uceda." He also asked to be remembered each year on this date. Then he bent his neck beneath the sword and received the crown of martyrdom which he had sought. This occurred on February 8th, 319, on a Saturday, at the third hour of the day. St. Theodore is regarded as the patron saint of soldiers. He is also commemorated on June 8th.
Wow.
Patron saint of soldiers.
So, I mean, you just have to wonder why this guy would still execute him.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
he didn't. I mean, charity, like, they didn't show mercy toward people who rose up against him.
No, but I mean, he had this miraculous healing of his body.
Oh, yeah.
And then they kill him anyway, but here's the thing. Here's what we don't think about because we're such materialists. Is that they were used to interventions, like spiritual and supernatural, for lack of a better word, things happening, right? And it was for them, it was a struggle of the gods, basically.
Yeah, it was the war of the gods, right?
War of the gods.
Between the gods, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. They were more familiar with the numinous than us and had more experiences.
Yeah.
I was actually talking with my daughter about that this week. She met with our priest, and she's not Orthodox, but she's kind of exploring the faith more. And she met with him, and one thing she brought up, I'll stop sharing this. We were talking about religion and what religion is, and it actually wasn't related to her conversation with the priest, but just during the week we were talking about, what do you think religion is? And she was saying, I think it's people who unite under a common goal or a common purpose, and they're struggling together. And I was like, yeah, that's part of it. And I was like, it's like a sports team would fall under that category too, though, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the difference between religion and sports? We kind of got more into it, but I eventually I shared with her, I was like, I had that view. I thought that religion was kind of like a, people invented it because they were afraid of dying, and all those things, all those modernist explanations, or that it's just a social club, and I was like, but honestly, now my view has changed a lot, and it's more like it's gathering around people who have had experiences with the numinous. And those people are trying to share with us how to have our own experience. And I said, and because we were talking about ecumenical councils, and my there were some people that were Roman Catholic, and they were kind of a different view of the ecumenical councils. Like, oh, it's just smart people getting together. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think it was smart people. I think it was people who had experience with God through prayer who were then bringing that experience to the discussion and clarifying, what the tradition has always been. And it's a very different view of religion than I grew up with, even though I grew up religious. It's more like making sense of these encounters and trying to then live in such a way that you can walk in the joy of that.
Here's something really interesting about that, Jeremy. Like, the more you talk about these, encounters, right, for humanists, they're largely unexplainable. They're hard to articulate. They have a lasting impact on most people's lives in some form or another.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee for a good life. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about I don't know, it's about some kind of solid foundation on which people can build, something like that, maybe. But everyone has them. And here's the interesting thing about human beings. They don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Like I remember listening to Rupert Sheldrake when I first discovered him and hearing, he's experimenting with people who can feel themselves being looked at. Right. Or who know just before the phone rings, someone's going to call them. Right. Things like this. And everyone in the room is like, oh yeah, but that's normal.
Right.
But it isn't normal. Like, if you think about it, if you want to look at it from a scientific perspective, there's no reason, there's no scientific reason, there's no explanation.
There's no causality for that. Yeah, right.
There's no scientific explanation for it. And so they call him a pseudoscientist. Meanwhile, everyone's having the experience.
Yes.
Which is crazy, right? Like,
yeah, but it doesn't fit into the framework of materialism. And so.
No, it doesn't. But how odd are we that we can actually all have these experiences, be in such a framework, like such a worldview, that we refuse to talk about them, even maybe go so far as to call someone else names, like Rupert, just to guard against what? Groupthink? Peer pressure? Like, what do you want to call that? Right?
Yeah.
But everyone knows exactly what he's talking about.
Right. Yeah.
What an odd creature we are, I think.
Yeah. No, it is, well, there's a lot more to us than materialism, right? Like, it just can't account for most of human experience.
No, I mean, the experiences, sure, those are odd, but the fact that we treat them like that, even though we know that they're important.
Oh yeah. Right.
Right. That
we've been stripped of the language to talk about them.
And the space to talk.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. Well said.
We don't have the space to talk about them.
Right. Yeah.
And everything has to be explained in like some kind of materialistic, scientific way. But here's the thing. I think thanks to Jonathan Pajot and largely him, I would say, people are feeling more and more comfortable with mythological language.
Yeah.
Which is really the only way to talk about these things.
Yeah. Well, and then what's fun is the feedback loop starts where you learn about the myths and then you start seeing the myths in your life.
Yeah.
Like I remember saying this to someone. I was talking to someone who's a Christian and I just said, yeah, it's wild when you start actually like living out the stories of the scriptures, like you like find yourself in a gospel story and they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, what? Like, that doesn't happen to you. And they're just like,
or even the
story that happened 2,000 years ago. How could that be? How can I be living in it? And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. That's so sad.
No,
That's so sad. That's
it's
so sad.
not. Here's the word real. Not real.
Right. Yeah.
Um, no, but I mean, you can even see. I don't know. Let me say this. I don't know if I could have understood my life as the Odyssey, the actual Greek myth,
Right.
20 years ago. But now I do. Not because I'm older, but thanks to Jonathan
Right.
Bateau. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, like,
Yeah.
it's like he pulled back the veil a little bit, right?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
For us,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. Well, it's what allowed me to enter back in
Mhm.
to the space, right? Because,
Right.
I grew up with a very materialist view of the scriptures, and then that kind of falls apart, if you
Mhm.
have that way of looking at it. And only because, I'll never forget Jordan's first lecture on the Bible, where
Oh,
he
no.
didn't actually crack it open, right? He didn't even actually read it. It was kind of like an introduction to God. But what I loved about what he was, and it was an introduction to the Bible, but what I loved in there was when he said, I'm not going to talk about the historicity of the Bible, and I actually think that's not very relevant or important or even useful. I'm
Mhm.
going to talk instead about how the Bible is perfectly in line with our best up-to-date neuroscientific understanding of consciousness. And I was like, what again? What are you talking about? And he starts going into Genesis 1 and talking about how it relates to perception and how we
Yeah.
perceive the world, and how, there was this whole different world of a whole
Yeah.
different way of seeing the scriptures was open to me
Yeah,
that
the
had never
language.
been open to me before.
Right, because it was because the scriptures were using mythological language
Right.
and
Right.
we were using scientific language,
Correct.
propositional
That's
language.
exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. And I was trapped in it, and I
And
couldn't see.
yeah, so trapped,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was catechized in the religion of materialism for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's beautiful. I'm very, I still pray for Jordan and for Jonathan every day, because
They need that. They
that's
need
why I'm
those
here.
prayers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're getting it from all sides. So, okay. We have another Life of the Saint. We're going to give the audience what they came for.
Theodore the Recruit.
Yeah, Theodore the Recruit. Let me share my screen. Great martyr Theodore the Tyro, or Recruit. The holy great martyr Theodore the Recruit was a soldier in the city of Amasea in Pontus, Asia Minor, on the coast of Euxine, the Black Sea. Under the command of the Praepositus, the regimental commander, Brincus, St. Theodore was ordered to offer sacrifice to idols, but he proclaimed his faith in Christ the Savior in a loud voice. Brincus gave him a few days to think it over, during which time the saint prayed. Theodore was accused of setting a pagan temple on fire and destroying the idol of Rhea, and so he was thrown into prison to be starved to death. The Lord Jesus Christ appeared to him there, comforting him and encouraging him. When he was brought before the governor Publius, Theodore boldly confessed his faith, for which he was subjected to new torments and condemned to be burnt alive. The great martyr Theodore mounted an enormous pyre, and after he made the sign of the cross, the wood was lit, but the Holy Spirit cooled the flames. St. Theodore stood in the flames, praising and glorifying God. Then he gave his holy soul into God's hands, and the onlookers saw his soul ascending to heaven, according to the author of his life, who was also an eyewitness. This occurred in about the year 306 under the Roman Emperor Galerius. Unharmed by the fire, St. Theodore's body was buried under a widow's house in the city of Eucada, not far from Amasea. Later, his relics were transferred to Constantinople, to the church which bears his name. His head is in the city of Gaeto, Italy. 50 years after the St. Theodore's martyrdom, Emperor Julian the Apostate, reigned from 361 to 363, planned to commit an outrage upon the Christians during the first week of Great Lent. He ordered the city magistrate of Constantinople to sprinkle all the food in the marketplaces with blood which had been offered to idols. St. Theodore appeared to Archbishop Eudoxius in a dream and told him to inform all the Christians that no one should buy anything in the marketplaces, but to eat boiled wheat with honey instead. That's called koliva. And we still use koliva for our memorial services. When we have a memorial, so you make koliva like the night before, and then you bring it, and it's blessed, and then everyone eats it as part of memorial service. In remembrance of this occurrence, the Orthodox Church commemorates the holy great martyr Theodore the Recruit each year on the first Saturday of Great Lent, which is also a day where all the dead are commemorated, and everyone brings koliva to church, and you bring a list of all of your dead relatives, and the priest reads special prayers over them, and then you all eat the koliva together. On Friday evening, at the Divine Liturgy of the Pre-Sanctified Gifts, after the prayer at the ambo, the canon to the holy great martyr Theodore, composed by St. John of Damascus, is sung. After this, koliva is blessed and distributed to the faithful. The celebration of the great martyr Theodore on the first Saturday of Great Lent was established by Patriarch Nectarios of Constantinople between 381 and 397. The troparion to St. Theodore is very similar to the troparion for the prophet Daniel and the three holy youths on the Sunday before the Nativity of the Lord. The Kontakion to St. Theodore, who suffered martyrdom by fire, reminds us that he also had faith as his breastplate. In iconography, St. Theodore the Recruit is depicted in 4 different ways, either alone in military garb, battling a large snake, or together with St. Theodore the Commander, standing upright or riding horses. He always wears his military uniform. We pray to St. Theodore the Recruit for the recovery of stolen articles. So there's an icon of St. Theodore the Recruit.
Beautiful. So Upcycle says, one aspect that I really love about the faith is that we also have the Sunday of the Holy Forefathers. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's all of the prophets from the Old Testament and the stories from the Old Testament.
Oh, right.
Are commemorated then. So, right. Yeah. And we have a bonus saint tonight. I brought 3. I have
3 Theodores.
3 Theodores. That's right. 3 gifts from God. In case you came late, that's what Theodore means in Greek, is a gift from God. And I will share it. Here we go. Now we get a fool for Christ. So we had two soldiers and now a fool for Christ. Blessed Theodore of Novgorod was the son of pious parents, wealthy citizens of Novgorod. Having been raised in strict Christian piety and having reached the age of maturity, he took on himself the ascetic deed of foolishness for Christ's sake. He gave all his possessions to the poor, and he lived in great poverty until the end of his life, not even having a roof over his head, nor warm clothes on cold days. When he discovered a mutual enmity between the Novgorod citizens of the Torgov quarter and the inhabitants of the Sofia quarter, Blessed Theodore pretended to be feuding with Blessed Nicholas Kochanov, who lived in asceticism on the opposite Sofia side. When Blessed Theodore happened to cross over the Volkhov bridge to the Sofia side, then Blessed Nicholas pushed him over to the Torgov side. Theodore did the same thing when Nicholas chanced upon the Torgov side. The Blessed Ones, spiritually in agreement with each other by their unusual behavior, reminded the people of Novgorod of their own internecine strife, which often ended in bloody skirmishes.
Mm.
The Blessed One possessed the gift of clairvoyance. By warning people to see their bread, he was actually predicting an impending famine. Another time he said, "This will be bare. It will be fine for sowing turnips." This was his prediction of a fire that devastated the streets of the Torgov quarter. Blessed Theodore foresaw his own end and said to the Novgorod people, "Farewell, I'm going far away." During his life, the citizens of Novgorod saw him as a saint pleasing to God and had a high regard for him. After his death in the year 1392, the Holy Fool was buried, at his request, in the Torgov quarter at Lubyanitsa, in the church of the Holy Great Martyr George, at the porch where the saint usually loved to spend his time in unceasing prayer. A chapel was built over his holy relics.
So I take it that's Russia? Novgorod?
Yep.
Novgorod? Okay. So these two
the night of three Theodores.
Yeah. That's you know, I watched that movie that you recommended to me, The Island.
Oh.
So if anybody wants to understand the Holy Fool and what his role is, you have to watch. Jeremy, could you pull it up so people can see
Yep.
it?
Yep.
It's such a good movie. It has constantly kind of floated back to me different things, especially going through some of these saints' lives. It's a really good movie.
It's beautiful. Yeah. My priest told me about it very early on in Orthodoxy, and I didn't understand it very well. And then, I mean, I did. I mean, it's a pretty clear story going forward. But then, after I had been Orthodox for a couple of years, I went back and watched it again, and it's just unbelievable. It's so powerful. There's
And it
so
really,
much going on too. It's so beautiful.
It really helped me to understand what the Holy Fool is doing. You know, like we just talked about these religious wars, right? And identity. And essentially that's what the Holy Fool is constantly poking at. He's poking at this propensity that we have to identify with something outside of, you know, let's say on a horizontal plane instead of on a vertical plane, right?
Yeah, nice way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was one scene in The Island that I especially loved when when they would go into the church to say all these monks, you know, because it's a monastery on an island.
Mm-hmm.
And this Holy Fool, he was actually there to keep the monks, like the actual monks, you know, awake. That's the job of the Holy Fool, is to wake people up, right? And so they do these inverted things. And one of the things he kept doing was not facing the front of the church when when they were praying. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He'd be turned sideways, and the other monks would face him in the right direction, you know, and then they let go of his shoulders, and he'd just turn back around and face some blank wall somewhere. Really good movie. Highly recommend.
And there's a specific reason why.
Oh yeah.
There's a specific reason why. Sherry's just not revealing it. She doesn't want to give you any spoilers, but there's a specific reason why he's turning. So yeah. That's a lot of the thing with the Holy Fools, is that while they're doing something, you have no idea what they're doing. You're like, why is this person acting so crazy?
And you think they're crazy. Everyone thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
Literally thought he was. And as the viewer, you're kind of like, what is
going on?
Yeah.
And then later you're like, oh.
Big time. And what a heart. Like, anyway,
it's really, such a powerful story.
Yeah. And
and it's beautiful as well. Like the cinematography is beautiful.
it's
Now it
well,
is subtitled, right? But
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
unbelievable.
I
I
dropped a
love it.
link if anybody's interested in hopping in with us. We always enjoy that so much. Um, what I was going to ask you, like, I guess some of the stylite saints would be considered holy fools in a way, right? What do you
You
think?
could say that. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
Because I'm wondering if it's an Eastern European phenomenon, because it seems like a lot of them are Eastern Europeans, Russian
Mm.
or Bulgarian. Maybe upcycle if you're still listening. If
Yeah,
you
no, that's actually
any Greek
interesting.
holy fools, there must be, must be.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. I don't know. I don't know of any. I mean, I know Saint Gabriel was Georgian, but
Mhm.
that's Eastern European. So I don't know. I don't know of any. Well, no, Saint Simeon was a holy fool, and he was Greek.
Okay,
Saint Simeon, is it Saint Simeon?
was he a
Why am I-
stylite?
No, no, no. Hold on. Now I
Well,
don't have the
upcycle
book.
says yes. Upcycle says yes. He was Greek.
Yeah, Simeon the Holy Fool. Yeah, I couldn't. I wasn't sure if I was getting his name confused because we just last Sunday was the presentation of Christ at the temple, and Saint Simeon is commemorated because Saint Simeon was the one who received him at the temple.
Oh,
So
that's
I had him on my mind, and I was like, oh, is that what I'm
and
thinking
he
of?
was a
It's
holy
not the same
fool.
Simeon. It's not the same Saint Simeon. No,
Oh, it's not the same one. No.
no, Saint
Okay.
Simeon. Yeah, he was the one who received Christ at the temple, and
Mhm.
uh, received the offering of the two turtle doves,
Right.
which is why it's in the song. Two turtle doves and a
Yeah.
partridge in a pear tree. Um, but no, Saint Simeon the Fool, the Saint Simeon the Holy Fool, he was Greek. So
Okay.
there are other there, and I think there's others, but I can't think of any off the top of my
We
head.
could most certainly find ourselves a list of holy fools in the Orthodox Church, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Chronologically speaking.
yeah,
But I always had the sense that the stylites were kind of holy fools because they were in these public places and they were doing something totally outrageous.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that's kind
yeah,
of
yeah, for
holy
sure.
fool
Yeah,
is
yeah.
definitely like a lighthouse
Mm-hmm.
thing, you know,
Yep.
in
Yeah.
full view of the public. And just keeps everyone guessing, like what the
Yeah. Well, and it gives it like everyone is looking at them too, right? Like you said, watching. I mean, they're high up. It's like a beacon for sure.
we
Oh,
did
see,
Saint
wow.
Sabas too, right? Actually.
Good question. I don't
Yeah,
remember
we
Saint Sabas.
did.
Saint Sabas, the Fool for Christ.
Mhm.
I don't remember off the top of my head. Born in Thessaloniki. Yeah, he's a Greek. I don't think we talked about Saint Sabas.
Can you show me? Show
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. I don't think we've covered him. We should do another Fools for Christ episode.
Oh, I love those guys.
That would be good. Yeah.
If I
Okay.
wasn't
Sorry.
married, I'd probably be one of those. I don't think my husband would appreciate it though.
Yeah.
About a
Oop.
payday.
Oh, whoa. There we go.
Okay.
Say the Saint Sabas,
Oh
the Fool
no,
for
I don't.
Christ. Yeah, I don't think we've covered him.
Okay. I remember a Saint Sabas for some reason,
Hmm.
but maybe I don't.
Maybe it was your other Lives of the Saint show you do with your school friends. I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to look at the
Oh,
spreadsheet.
okay. We will. Yeah, I
There's
will.
so
I'll check
many
it
of
out.
these saints, we can't remember who we did. It's
I
terrible.
know, right? Yeah, the list is growing.
But we're not going to beat ourselves up about it, right, Jeremy?
No, it's fine. It's that's why I have a spreadsheet. I can look it up later.
Yeah, that's why there's a cynic, sorry, and so you can keep track of them all.
Nobody wants to come in and talk.
There's a link, folks. Just saying. Yeah. I'm wondering if
Well, there was a Saint Savin.
we did.
So, yeah, so maybe that was
Okay.
Saint Savin instead of Savas.
Okay.
But that's the closest one I see on my cheat sheet.
Okay. Cool.
I need to update it though. I'm like 2 or 3 episodes behind. Oh, need to fix it.
Well.
Evgeny, I started a book. He said he'll be here in a minute.
Oh, good.
So maybe I'll wait till he gets here to tell him.
Will there be
it's a Russian philosopher that he recommended.
Oh, that Ukrainian guy?
I don't know. Soloviev. So I'll share.
Vladimir Soloviev.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Talk about fool for Christ. In my opinion. I mean, he was a pretty. Oops. Will there? Tim's asking, will there be a Theotokos episode?
I'm very hesitant to do that. I don't think so.
He's warming up his tea. Take your time.
Just out of respect.
Yeah.
I've talked about her publicly too much already.
Yes.
So please forgive me. But
you got this one. Transformation of Eros.
Yeah. I just started it.
Okay.
And it's so good, and it actually ties to a conversation that I was having with a friend of mine at church on Sunday, because he was telling me he was starting to get into Hegel and stuff, and I was like, oh boy. So
Hegel's not bad. Hegel's not bad. You got to understand Hegel.
Well, I just don't.
Says the woman who's never read Hegel.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like the problem with some of the philosophers is that they're building on work of people before them, and the people before them, I don't buy their presuppositions either. So it's hard for me to get on board, you know?
Yeah, true.
And so, I mean, that's why I like Otto much more than I like Hegel, you know, and Otto is the one who was talking, like, he's the one that came up with the word numinous, which I loved. And anyway, he was basically giving me a hard time. He's like, so you just don't read any philosophers since who? Like, where can you go back to? And I was like, well, pre-Occam. And he was like, yeah, he's like, dude, that's a long way back in Western philosophy. I'm like, yeah. But then I've been studying more about the road that the Russians have taken. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Well, the Russians are, you know, there's that famous line from, what was that pop group that did Rah Rah Rasputin? Remember that song?
I don't know. No, I don't know.
Where they end the whole song with, oh, those Russians. Speaking of the devil, look, there's one right there.
Hey.
Well, I hope you didn't mean it literally. Well, Rasputin, I think, wasn't it Boney M?
Boney M.
Boney M.
Yeah, and they ended the song with, oh, those Russians.
yes, something like that.
You know, and I have to, honestly, like, I've read Soloviev. I read War and Christianity. I haven't read his little, at the back of that, there's a thing on the Antichrist. And then I've read about 6 lectures from Divine Humanity. And I've listened to some of Rudolf Steiner's writings about Soloviev. And then I did the Sophiology course with Michael Martin, and we did a section on Soloviev. But he's just like, talk about, like, to me, he's like a fool for Christ. Here's one of the things that marked him was his laughter, which I could totally relate to because I'm always laughing. See? And he had this very bell-like, very loud, raucous, you know, laughter. And it kind of punctuated things that he would say that nobody understood. So it was
Jonathan Peugeot does that all the time.
right.
He
Right.
used to. It used to be like a nervous tick of his, where he would kind of laugh when he knew the other person had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah, well, there's
But
something.
anyway,
There's something about that. Like I get that. Like I feel that.
Yeah.
And the other thing about Soloviev was he saw the Theotokos. She appeared to him, and she said, "Meet me in the desert." And he literally got on a boat and went to Egypt.
Wow.
And he's described as like top hat and, his whatever turn of the century garb, wandering around in the desert in Egypt looking
I
for
love
her.
it. Oh my gosh. Now I really want to read his book. So, yeah, I just got Transformations.
Which one are you reading? Which one?
I just got Transformations of Eros.
Oh, okay.
And just started it, and I love it so far. I'm not very far into it, but I'm like, yes, this is great. Yes.
Yeah. I don't think I've read this one, but I think I know what he's saying. I think.
I'm going to
in
grab
this remarkable book, Vladimir Soloviev guides his readers through an intellectual and spiritual journey from a Platonic to a Christian understanding of Eros, from a partial to a complete understanding of love. As an introduction to Soloviev's work and to his unique philosophy of Christian Eros, this book is at once accessible and indispensable. So,
yeah, he's also got The Meaning of Love, which is one that I should have read for the sociology course, but I missed that one for a number of reasons. I never got it under my belt yet. But I'm just going to grab a book. The first book I read, it's not his, it's about him, but it's not him. But I'll just grab it.
What are some of the things that stood out for you so far in this book?
Well, mainly I just read the introduction by the translator, and then I've read just a little bit of it. But in the introduction, what I really liked was his harmony and synthesis of philosophy with Christianity and with, but not, it's like, how do I say, like the lived experience of Christianity. It's not just like he was very against abstractions. He was very against concepts and theories and systems and systematic ways of looking at things. And I find that really refreshing, because I find most modern or most Western philosophers rely too much on charts and flow charts and diagrams. At least maybe not, like actually.
Are you talking about
the way they describe things? I just don't like it.
You're talking about Soloviev?
Yeah. He has a very holistic view of philosophy that I found really refreshing, and I'm really excited to read more of his work.
So when the war started between Russia and the Ukraine, I immediately bought War and Christianity by Vladimir Soloviev, because I thought, okay, if I want to know what those two countries are thinking about while they're involved in this, I need to read a Russian guy who was a friend to many. Like, he was a very, what's the word? Equanimous? Is that the word? Is that a word? Magnanimous.
Magnanimous, yeah.
So, like in his, I mean, even Eastern European Jews loved Soloviev, and he was a friend. He was considered like a friend to the Jews and so on. Anyway, this is the book that I first read, Divine
Sophia, yes.
by Judith Kornblatt. And it's actually if anybody's interested to learn about Soloviev, this is really interesting. Like, this is where I got all that information about him running off to the desert, and I feel for his parents, because, he was supposed to go and be, I can't remember what, a lawyer or something to that effect. And then he got interested in metaphysics and philosophy, and, his parents were going, oh my God, how's he going to make any money, you know, and then he goes, I'm gonna go to England. I need to look into the occult sciences, you know, and he's checking out the theosophists, and like he's just everywhere. He's just all over everywhere, right? Having visions. Okay, mom, I'm going to Egypt. Bye. I saw the Virgin Mary and she told me to meet her there, you know. But then and he writes amazing poetry, but at the same time, he has this, like, if you read the lectures on divine humanity, the logic is razor sharp. Okay. And it's believed that Alyosha and Ivan are based on Soloviev because Dostoevsky
Really?
knew him.
Wow.
They were friends. They got
Both
to,
of them? Both of them are based on him?
yeah, because
Interesting.
that's how Soloviev was. He was Alyosha and he was Ivan. Like, just incredibly, like, well-rounded human being. Very, very, you know, out there, loving, kind, wonderful, but just razor sharp intellect and logic. And War and Christianity is written as a dialogue between several characters. It's like reading a play. And he doesn't tell you what you should think. He doesn't give you an opinion. He lets all the characters tell their stories. You know, there's a impotent aristocrat. There's a general who fought against the Ottomans. There's a aristocratic woman who's kind of trying to keep the peace. You know, there's a philosopher, which is probably him. And he just really shows how complex the whole thing really is, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read that one. You intrigued me.
His books are kind of hard to find. Most of them are out of print, and so a lot of them are unavailable on Amazon. And even some of my more, I don't know, copyright less caring about copyright sources of books don't have much from him either.
Wow.
So I've been trying to find some of his work, and it's hard to track down, at least in English.
I'm surprised that all of these guys have been translated into English.
I think it's recent. Well, I shouldn't say that.
Okay.
Steiner read Soloviev. Steiner was a great admirer of him, actually.
I just noticed The Meaning of Love by Soloviev has an introduction by Owen Barfield.
Yep.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I read him years and years ago, but I didn't know Barfield then.
Yeah, because of Steiner, eh? Because Barfield was an anthroposoph, so he was a Steinerian.
Yes. Steinerian, yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I don't even know, when did Soloviev die? I wonder if Soloviev and Steiner were contemporaries even, because Soloviev got involved with Blavatsky for a short period just because he was researching. Like I said, he was everywhere, you know, checking these things out. He'd hear of something and he'd have to go see, you know, for himself.
Yeah. Well, Berdyaev actually knew him, and he talks a lot about the Christian meaning of eros a lot in his writings, and it really overlaps with what Soloviev has to say, as far as I remember.
Well, I would even wager that almost all of the sophiologists, their foundation is Soloviev, right? Like that's what they're building on, because his visions of the Theotokos were, he called her Sophia, divine Sophia, and
there's a picture of him. He lives from 1853 until 1900.
There he is.
Okay.
There we go. That's a great photo.
He looks like a Russian version of George MacDonald, actually. They have a similar little vibe going on there. Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating.
Fellow
Fascinating.
beard guy.
Yeah.
When you guys were talking about fools for Christ's sake, for some reason I thought of Forrest Gump because it was.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I knew. I mean, growing up, I knew a lot about fools, at least Russian fools for Christ's sake. But when I watched this movie first, I mean, I really liked the movie, but I really clearly saw this archetype there.
Yeah, totally.
Because he is like a little bit off out of his mind, and yet he seems to follow certain way. I mean, he knows the way, and he's the follower of the way, and everything, like all the pieces of the puzzle, come together for him in the end, even though he doesn't care about anything, anything external, and
he kind of does that fool for Christ thing where he follows the muse, right? Like he gets this instruction to just get up and go and run, run, Forrest, run.
And then
he saves the captain.
And then stop. Yeah. And so like these human beings who can tap into this, they really it's just interesting. It's really fascinating to me. I talked about that book that I read, Jeremy, once, where that old guy wants to mail that letter to his old secretary because she's dying of cancer, and then he ends up walking 500 miles or something in the UK to her, just wearing the clothes that he put on that day to go mail the letter in his village. And people start following him, and he doesn't even talk to them. And they're building this narrative around who he is, why he's walking, why they're joining him. There's just a whole what that kind of activity does to society, to groups of people. It really is a waking up thing to me. And I think it has to do with how do I put I don't know how to say this, but it's like they present a backdrop in which you can see the contrast. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Like in the phrase that the church fathers use, and you see it in the scriptures too, where they become a judge of you, but they're not judging you. They become a judge of you because they're holding up the example that you're not living, right? Like the apostles, the church fathers refer to the apostles as the judges of Israel, not because they're going to sit and judge, on the final judgment. It's that they were Jews and they recognized Christ, and the Jew, and the Jews who rejected him did not. So they will act as a judge, just as an example.
Well, here's a good example.
Through their example, they're judging, right?
You know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking of the prophet Nathan when he showed up with King David and he told him this story.
Right.
And King David's like, "Who is that man?" And I'm gonna, and he just did this,
Yeah, right.
To you, man.
Yeah.
That's kind of a fool for Christ move.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, and the other thing that was coming to mind while you were talking about it was, so that book that you just got today about Job.
Yeah.
In there, he really talks about St. Maximus's view on what he called the gnomic will. So the gnomic will, spelled GNOMIC, gnomic will, is like your will to do good. And he said our will was actually not ruined by the fall. Like our will still works properly. We are still, we still have a will to do good things. The problem was in the fall or what was affected by the fall was our ability to discern what is good. And the fact that we deliberate about
We
it.
deliberate. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
we think about it. We think about what should we do? What
Stop.
is good? There's this, we see something and then we go, oh, should I do that? And that was actually, St. Maximus said that was actually the original sin, was
And that's
when
what Forrest
Adam
Gump,
asked, what should I do?
right? And
Right?
that's what Forrest Gump doesn't do. That's
Yes.
exactly what we were pointing out when we said
Right.
he gets
Right.
the thing to go run, he runs, and then he gets
Right.
the thing to stop, he stops. Like he doesn't deliberate, right?
Right.
That's kind
And
of
that's,
the green lady
yeah. Oh,
Paralandra.
sorry, go.
Sorry, I just wanted to throw in that's kind of like the green lady in Paralandra.
Oh,
Right.
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and that is, so St. Maximus says that when someone is dispassionate, when they've been healed of all of their passions, that's how they live. They live they have no gnomic will. They don't have a will that where they're thinking about what to do next.
Yeah,
They don't even have words.
that's the fool, and that is the fool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. They're not thinking about what to do next. They just,
They're-
you know, and I don't know if he used the analogy or if it was just the speaker, because I was listening to an interview about this idea as well. And he was saying it's like a dog wagging its tail. When a dog is wagging its tail, it always means the same thing.
Mhm.
And the dog doesn't think about it. Like when you walk up to the dog and the dog is happy to see you, the dog wags its tail. And the wagging always means that it's happy to see you. And the dog does not think about wagging its tail before it wags its tail.
Mm-mm.
Right. And he's like, that is a true human. A human, that's how it is when you're a saint, when you've been, when you're truly human, when you've been healed.
Yeah, that's
you lose that gnomic will.
So right. So if there's the two wills with Maximus, this is the very little I know. But the two wills with Maximus are the natural will, which is the will towards the good,
Mm-hmm.
and the gnomic will, which is the will that causes one to stop and pause and deliberate.
Yes.
And that's always, I think, like when I first came across that, I was like, that was just like, that changed the whole idea of original sin for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting about that is that's when other, like, how do you put that? Like more selfish or narcissistic reasons can enter in, right? When you think, well, maybe I shouldn't because people will laugh at me, or maybe I shouldn't because I might lose my investment, or maybe I shouldn't because whatever it is that I want to have, I'll lose grasp of, right? It's a having thing.
Yeah.
That's why, that is actually why, Jeremy, the story goes, they take the fruit and they eat of it.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that gnomic will it's about having something that you can call your own. Whereas the natural will is a completely letting go, a knowing that everything is a gift.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an interesting metaphor. It made me think of, we read Harry Potter to our kids a while ago. And I don't know if you've read that, but there's a part in one of the later books about this charm called Felix Felicis. And when we read about that, it's basically like a potion or something. And when you drink it, everything, you are in the luck. Everything goes right for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so Harry saves it, and then he drinks it. And then, to the surprise of all the others, he starts acting weird because he doesn't think. And he just stands up and says, I need to see Hagrid now. That's all. I mean, that's just, and they say, no, you can't go there. This is just beyond logic. I mean, it's dark. He lives at the edge of the forest. I mean, you shouldn't be doing. And he's smiling at like, oh yeah, I have to go. And he goes there, and this is exactly where he needs to be at the moment for things to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's several episodes where this particular charm, and my wife actually said, it's like when the Holy Spirit descends on you.
Right.
You don't really deliberate. I mean, because there's the unification of the will that happens in
Right.
the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's an interesting experience because it's one thing to talk about it abstractly, uh, in the abstract, but it's the other. It feels very. Um, it has a specific feel when it comes. It's not doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it's like it's unmistakable.
Right. Yeah, totally. I'm just about, I'm 3/4 of the way through Charles Williams's War in Heaven. Did you read that one by any chance?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
No.
I never dove into Charles Williams before. And yeah, there's going to be a group of people who are all reading it. We're going to talk about it on Girl Country. And man, he's pretty good, Charles. One of the Inklings,
Mm.
Yeah, the lesser known guy, but it has those rich vibes that you get from people like Soloviev and all these undercurrents. Lots of I don't know, I just think about them in terms of vibration or the such. My dogs are seeking me out because they're hungry.
And wagging their tails.
Yeah. They're like, what's going on? Supper time.
Well, I'm reading Moby Dick right now still too as well, and I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it.
Oh,
It's really a lot of fun.
I've heard. I've never read it, but I've heard
It is great.
really highly about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more going on than just the whale chase, right? It's really great. There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, there's a lot of. That's one of those where you start to detect something like, and you see some layers, and then like things start. He really starts opening stuff up.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, obviously the story about the whale is very relevant, but there's so many aspects to it that it's way beyond an adventure story. It's
Right.
it's much more of a to me, it's much more of a shaman's tale of venturing out into the unknown, facing death, not knowing if you'll come back, and just surrendering. It's like to me, it reminds me of like Jacob wrestling on the beach, with an angel through the night. To me, it's that same struggle of wrestling with the numinous, encountering it, not being able to describe it, and the fear and the fear and the awe that come at the same time.
Yeah.
That very much matches my encounters with the numinous, right? Where it's much like I relate to the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark a lot more than I relate to The Chosen. Where if you're there and you shouldn't be there, you're gonna get burned, right? And while you're there, you're aware of that, right? Where you're just like, whoa, this is. I'm only not burned because of grace from God, right? Because I should be. And,
it's interesting that you mentioned fear and awe at the same time, because I wonder if one merges into the other, or do you think they're just they remain there as fear is fear and awe is awe? Because I think when you go, almost like you go there, I'm thinking of Bilbo, like he goes on an adventure and at first he's afraid. Like he didn't bring his handkerchiefs, and there's trolls and there's this and there's that, and he's just fearful. But then, as you say, he goes, faces the numinous, on many occasions, and then he realizes there's awe there. So where there's fear, there's awe.
Yeah, we talked about this recently. I'm trying to remember where. It might have been in. Oh, I know. It was in the live chat during the last live stream that Nate did with Jordan Daniel Wood and Chris Green. and Luke Thompson, and they were talking about the fear of the Lord, and how, a lot of people understand that as being afraid of God, like literally being afraid of God. But the Hebrew, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? From the book of Job. But the Hebrew there is awful, right? And that would have been the older English way of talking about it as well. Something that is awful is actually full, something that brings you into this state of awe. And I think that's just like, it's kind of like, when you have a small child, like a baby, and you make them laugh, but if you make them laugh too long, they cry, they flip really, really quickly. I think it's very much like that, where the awe can become, fear, because awe is something probably associated with the unknown, because you're not familiar with it. So you're in awe of it, but you're at the same time, you're suspicious of it, right? Like, so if it makes one wrong move, you're going to run. Like, so like, you've got these two things going on at the same time. But here's the thing that I realized during that live stream. And because in the Orthodox Church, they say all through the liturgy, wisdom, attend.
Right.
Wisdom, attend. And
let us attend.
Let us attend. But you know why they say that? Because you can't get wisdom without attention.
Right.
Right? So, and the beginning of wisdom is awe, or awful, awe, right? So that mixed thing. So there's actually no wisdom, or there's no awe, wisdom, and attention are all bound up together. That's what I mean. They're all bound up together. And so if Godzilla comes out of the ocean and you're standing there, you're like, you're just like, that's, that you're giving that your full attention, right?
Yeah.
And you're
you're
wondering
riveted.
how it's going, is it going to kill me? Is it going to, do something good for me?
I listened to Martin Shaw's one of his older lectures the other day, and I could really appreciate. He said that we really yearn for the wild things, wild Christianity, because the kind of gospel that we have is really sanitized version. And I'm thinking of like how I would have felt up on the mountain of Transfiguration, because that was first, I believe it was just fearful. It's just fearful of what's going on, all these ghosts, appearing, and then it would probably, in Christ's presence, it would somehow transform into awe, which it did. Or seeing Christ walking on water in the middle of the night, on a stormy seas. I mean, things like that. I mean, I know when you read it in a children's Bible, it's so, miracle story.
Yeah.
But if you think about the actual experience, which has not been sanitized, it's like as wild as it gets. And
a feeling that comes close to me, or close for me, was when I saw Niagara Falls in person, and was standing like pretty close to where it, and it's that feeling where you're looking at it, it's huge and it's beautiful, and at the same time it's right when you're just like, it's that,
and powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful, and you can hear it, and it you can see the effect that it has, and it's like you can't even take it in. It's too big for your mind to. You can't perceive the Niagara Falls properly, even when you see the little ship, that's going down around. it's too big. It's too big to hold in your head. But that is the feeling that for me is the closest to the numinous, is standing at the edge of a cliff, where you look out and you get this beautiful view, and then you look down and go, it's that,
Yeah.
like, this isn't cuddly. This is a fire that will destroy you, but out of its love, out of his love for you, it doesn't. Right.
When I'm in, like, standing somewhere like that, Niagara Falls, I involuntarily just, like, just right down my back, like, just shivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. It is. It's too much. It's too big.
We were there last summer. One of the things, experiences I brought out of this, Niagara Falls, is the contrast between what you actually see. Well, we didn't go to the Canadian side. We were on the U.S. side, so we didn't see. It's still amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you can see almost anything, but then the whole thing is so commercialized and so turned into a boat ride, and you get this experience. And it's almost like I thought, and I looked at that and I wondered, what did the first people who saw it, what did they feel?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, anything but you can turn it into anything commercial,
Yeah.
But
right. We could make money off this. Yeah.
Yes. It's something like
That's only on the American side. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I saw it from both sides. I've seen the Canada side. You've got the Ripley's Believe It or Not museum over there.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know.
Only the Americans would turn it into a business.
Right. Right. You can't fool me. I lived in Canada. I know your ways.
Yeah. No, it's true.
But it was still gorgeous. Oh my goodness. So gorgeous.
Well, I mean, I had those same feelings. I went to there's the west coast of Vancouver Island. It's kind of hard to access. Like, they don't have good roads on purpose, I think. And there's a place called Bamfield, and out there, and I never remember the name of the park. But it's a bunch of old growth Sitka spruce. And these trees are like 700 years old, 900. I think they only live to be about 900 years, actually, and then they fall over. And they're just like, they're so huge, right? And they've got these, like, it's a very rudimentary park because it's hard to access. But we went there years ago, and it's probably better now. But at the time, it was a bunch of environmentalists saved the trees from being logged. Can you imagine? And thank goodness for them. But anyway, you had the same feeling like that you would have watching Niagara Falls, standing in this forest with these trees, And I remember the first time I had my first spiritual lesson from nature was an old Sitka had fallen down. So it was like a mature tree, and it was like monstrous, right? Laying on the ground. Like, it was just like, you don't even climb over the thing. It's so big. And on the top of it, there were all these little Sitka spruce and then other trees. So there was like this mini forest growing on top of it. Right. And the first thing that came to my mind was the verse where Jesus said, if you don't eat my body and drink my blood. Yeah. Right. I can't remember how the verse goes now, all the words, and I'm just like, oh, now I get it. Right. Because they were literally growing on the dead tree. They were eating his body and drinking his blood. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that still very clearly, that spot, because that was very impactful for me. what, you know, that's how I perceived at least what Jesus was talking about there.
There's an interesting verse in Revelation, closer to, I don't remember which chapter it is, but it's closer to the end, when, you know, a lot of like woes were happening one by one, and then the cups were happening one by one, and then Armageddon, and then, you know, nations clash against each other, and then it looks like, you know, this there's this gloom and doom like brewing, you know, for several chapters, and then it just says one thing, and then Jesus Christ appeared and basically destroyed all of that with a sword of his coming out of his mouth or something. Basically. Just one verse. And then there was silence in heaven for half an hour, or as if half an hour.
Yeah.
And that verse always caught my attention. It's like, I know on some feeling level, I know how probably it will feel, because, you know, like, look at the history of the world. If we look behind, it seems like there's so much of everything that needs redemption. There's so much. I mean, it seems unredeemable.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, there's one little verse or one little thing, a word coming out of Christ's mouth, and everything is set. Everything is set right.
Yeah.
And it's like everything, even that is going to be set right. Even that. It's like you know, it feels like a, you know,
It feels insurmountable.
new growth.
Yeah.
New growth.
Yeah.
Like an old dry stump all of a sudden came alive.
Yeah.
The whole thing, or that vision in is it Ezekiel, where the bones were clothed in flesh all of a sudden. I mean, how would that look? I don't know how that would look.
Yeah, I love that story because to me it's a backwards birth. Because the embryo starts out as soft tissue, right? And the structure of the human being is formed at the end. But this is the structure, and then the soft tissue gets put on at the end. You know, so it's like you have birth and death in the embryo, the baby, the child, the old person, the death, right? And in the Valley of Dry Bones, you have the death to the birth, right? It's backwards.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and that ties to the desert too, right? Being sent out into the desert, the dry bones in the valley, right? And then being called back from the desert into the promised land, right? Into New Jerusalem. That's a beautiful image.
Yeah, thank God for mythological language. That's all I Otherwise, we'd all be just trying to figure it out on a literal level, right?
Oh boy. Yeah.
And, you know, we all know how that's worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did open up that Job book today and had to read in there. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I was surprised at how thick it was, but then when I saw that he's going through it verse by verse and he's got 4 translations for every verse, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. He teases out a lot by comparing the different the different texts. So Eugene, just to catch you up, I shared a book with Sherry, and it's a commentary on the book of Job that just came out by Patrick Craig Trulia.
You should pop it up on the screen.
Okay.
Because if Jess watches this, he may be interested too. I'm just really pumped because he said it's one of the most important books in the whole Bible. I'm just like, yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's the one everyone says you can't understand, which is like an oxymoron. There it is.
So he takes the Masoretic text, and he takes the Vulgate, and he takes the Septuagint, and he is going through verse by verse the whole book of Job and talking about the different aspects of the different texts that are there, the different manuscripts, and then he also draws in church father commentary on it. But it's a synthesis. It's not just a collection of church father quotes. He's really does a great job of synthesizing their views and also teasing out his own interesting views by comparing the different manuscripts.
And he doesn't linger on it either.
No.
It's a pretty easy to read,
It's detailed but not tedious, and it's not repetitive.
Description, yeah. From what I've read, anyways. I haven't gotten too far in there, but
I have had the same experience, and I've just kind of flipped around too, just to see if it kind of holds that style, and it seems to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really transformational in how I see the book of Job, and how I see Christ, and how I see my own struggling attempt to try to live that way, and accept God's time frame for everything, and not complain, and not not curse God. And it's really stretching me into a different type of Christian than I was before I started reading the book. So highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Well, fellowship with Christ's suffering. And I think he's making the case that basically if you think you're getting to heaven without, which wouldn't even be a good way of phrasing it, but if you think you're getting closer to Christ without suffering,
think again.
You're very wrong. you're very confused. The suffering is the path, because Christ showed us the perfect path, right?
Well, it's not so much that it's that could. I know what you mean. I know what you're saying, Jeremy. I just want to be sure that people don't misconstrue that.
Thank you.
With actually running out to suffer, because
you don't seek it. No,
that's an important thing.
Because we all that's the whole self-flagellation torture. You're crawl around on your knees and total depravity and all that kind of thing, right? But it's more like one of my priests said to me one time, that is where Christ meets you, in the midst of your suffering, right? Because and I'm trying to remember exactly how the phrase goes, but I can't remember it. And I don't remember who said it, but it's an old thing about how God doesn't cause us to suffer. God is not insensitive to our suffering. God meets us. God is the God who accompanies us in our suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's true, then that's where we meet God, right?
Mm.
And I mean, you want to see a lot of people suddenly praying who never thought they would be praying. 9/11.
Yeah.
Right.
Ukraine war.
Oh, yeah.
People when they, and I'm not saying that.
I mean, the funny thing is that if you watch some of the Soviet movies about the war, Second World War, you see like main heroes praying, which was unheard of. I mean, it's like we don't talk about that. Yet, in the movies about war, it's allowable. And it's even
interesting.
It's understandable.
That is interesting.
I was gonna throw something there about suffering, because it's not exactly clear in my mind, and the reason is that I can clearly feel and other people also, that in the Russian Orthodoxy, uh, they're almost like two. There's almost like a cult of suffering. I don't know if I don't know how to call this in a different find a different name for it. But I don't know if you know about this guy. His name was Ignatius Brenchaninov. Ignatiy Brenchaninov. Well, he was a contemporary of Theophan the Recluse. And, I mean, anyway, well, he represents a very, very austere type of orthodoxy, and he has a lot of followers even now to this day, and some, I would say, I don't know how to call this, but some sects within Russian Orthodoxy that follow this type of orthodoxy. And I have a friend, and we've discussed that issue, the particular issue. All he's talking about is that we need to suffer. We have to suffer. I mean, almost like he's not seeking suffering. He's not looking for suffering, but at the same time, he's so absorbed with the idea of suffering as if it was the end in itself. And I remember reading. We read something from. Pathetic. I wouldn't know. Even know. It's like the old tales of the Egypt church fathers, something like this.
The sayings of the desert fathers.
Yeah, probably something like this.
Yeah.
And there was an incredibly uplifting story there about one Abba who he's. I mean, of course, people living in the desert will suffer, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
But his idea of like looking after his parish, his flock, would be to go out from one monk to another and asking them one question: what are you rejoicing about today? If he saw someone with like a gloomy face or no shining, no sparkle in their eyes, he's saying, are you sure you're with Christ today?
Yeah.
Because if you are with Christ today, even your suffering will be like a magnifying glass. Basically, it will magnify that. And we couldn't. I mean, unfortunately, we could not find common ground on that one. And I do believe because of this cult of suffering.
Yep. Yeah.
Somehow. So I don't know.
I get it. I went through a really dark night of the soul that lasted for quite a number of years. And one of the things that, when I started to recover, it was like, had major depressive disorder. And one of the things when I was just making like the very beginning steps to recovering from this, and I mean, for me, there was no end in sight at the time. I had no clue if I was ever going to get out of that, I remembered, well, it was like the Lord just said to me, get up and wash your face. That's what he kept saying to me. And he talks about that when you're praying and fasting. Get up and wash your face and go out as if, right? Nobody should know what you're doing. And in other words, and I was like, I felt like I was praying and fasting involuntarily because I was just screaming constantly for help. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. And I felt like I was fasting from life itself, right? Because I was so depressed. And so I started doing that. I started, no matter how terrible I felt, and believe me, it was bad. Okay. It was really bad. I would wash my face, and sometimes that was it for the day. That's all I could do. But I did it. Get up and wash your face. That's what he kept saying to me. And this is the problem with these suffering cults. Jesus has never called us to suffer openly. We can bear one another's burdens when we know someone is in suffering, you
Yeah.
know,
Pray
but
for
we
them.
are not called to suffer openly, actually. I don't see that anywhere. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice, get up and wash your face. I don't know. There's probably way more examples, but those are the things that are coming to my mind. And those were the things that kind of gave me the strength to bear my own difficulties, right? Because to me, the Lord was saying, I got this. Just live in it. Live in that knowledge. I've got this. You've got this. We've got this, So I don't know why I was saying all that, but yeah, suffering. People who openly suffer are narcissists, actually.
Right.
They really
Right.
are. They're just sick narcissists.
I was thinking of why can't I think of the name? The comedian who died recently. He's my oh man.
Huh.
Norm
Macdonald?
Thank you. Yeah, Norm Macdonald, had cancer for 10 years or something?
Mhm.
And no one knew.
Yeah.
That
is amazing.
Is Christian suffering.
Yeah.
Right. It's the fast but wash your face. Like you said, don't let people see that you're suffering.
And when you're praying, go in your closet.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't stand in the temple and strike your breast and say, I'm so glad I'm not like that guy,
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
I think this is always something that as a human being, we're going to struggle with because we participate in worship together. But yeah, we're just, that's why I wrote that poem so many years ago. It's a fine line that I walk upon. When I look down on it, it is there and then gone. Right? Oh, how I weary of the light that shines, which is, when something is revealed to you.
Right.
Making it thick once, making it fine, and you're just like, oh, can I just not have to concentrate on this? Right? Can I just walk? No, actually, you can't. It's a fine line, and you got to always wisdom attend.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
Yeah. The royal path.
Pay attention to everything,
Right. I really liked that advice from Martin Shaw about depression, just kind of tangentially related to what you were saying, where he said, if you notice that you're depressed, go for a walk and find 3 things that want to be noticed.
Yes.
And notice them.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like his other advice where he said, pick up a rock that's pretty heavy and carry it around for a while until you're about to drop it, and then set it somewhere higher than it was when you picked it up.
Oh, that's nice.
And he said that's a very good cure for depression. It's that same idea where you're talking about, where you get so closed in and the world, like everything feels impossible. Right. Like I had a stretch like that my freshman year in college where I kind of just fell out of life. And
I never thought that would ever happen to me. I mean,
yeah,
I wasn't prone to it at any point in time, but I had this car accident and I got, my brain's got a little shaken up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what caused it. And it was intense. Like it, was really intense. And I remember waking, like I didn't sleep much either. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was up at middle of the night, and I was looking out the window and it was a full moon and there was this huge old Douglas fir that had been dead for years. Just, all skeleton like in the moonlight. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh my God, that's me. And I could feel the bugs in the tree eating away at it. turning it into a fine sawdust. That's how I felt. Not a green shoot on it. Yeah. Just a memory of something that used to be something grand. That's what I felt like,
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought I would recover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, as you talk, I'm thinking back of like several huge episodes of like suffering in my life, including depression, I'd say, because it was as a teenager, I was prone actually to depression.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a particular hard time after our first daughter was born, because she was a fussy baby and she cried and cried for 5 months in a row. And it's probably because we were new parents and we were ourselves were kind of wrecks. But anyway, but I remember praying and praying, praying, just help and help, and it dragged on and no sleep for weeks. And no sleep can does something to your brain. I mean, it
Oh, yeah.
just goes out of whack totally. And and then I remember one point where I actually stopped babbling. Yeah, you know. Well, it's just like, what's the point? I already told him everything I want to
Yeah,
ask for. What's the point?
yeah.
And I felt really lighter almost immediately. Like I don't need to say anything.
Yeah.
I'll just enjoy the sunshine. But the one discovery I had. I mean, eventually our daughter calmed down and kind of put her on a schedule, and she learned how to sleep. Everything was fine. But I remember coming to a point where I said, "There's nothing I can do to make him do anything for me," you know, and I can still see that he does so much every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a sobering thing. Like, even if I just turn away and go the other direction, he'll still love me,
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, I don't. I mean, this is one lesson I'm not really good at. I mean, because it seems to repeat in my life again and again, because
I think
it's
it.
something I'm holding on to there,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah. So I need to let go. Really, it's not my
Well,
prayer
that
that saves me. It's nothing that I do that saves me.
Mm-hmm.
no, but at the same time, we have to try for, like there's also this, I think there's an expectation, and it's not just try harder. That's not what I'm talking about. We have to do something, right? We have to act in a way. Like, we can't just fall down. Like whenever anybody sees an angel in the Old Testament, the angel, they're always fainting,
Yeah.
and the angel
Fall down. Yeah.
picks them
Out
up.
of fear.
And God says to Job, when he shows up in the whirlwind for his incredible speech about creation, by the way, he says, Job, stand up, pull up your pants, be a man, and he's not, in my opinion, he isn't diminishing Job when he says that, but he's actually giving him his dignity back.
Mm-hmm.
Because Job's done. Like he's just sitting there in the ashes, probably half naked, right? And God says, come on, we're going to have a talk. We're on equal ground. Stand up, So I don't know. There's something that we have to learn. And I think it's cooperation. And actually, like, let's keep those two words separate. Cooperation, right? With God. So there's something that we have to do together. We have to get up, right? Together. And do and figure out where that thing happens, where that magic happens, where you're not trying to lead in the dance,
Mm-hmm. I think of it like fishing, right? Where you if you go fishing, there's no guarantee you're going to catch fish, and a lot of times you don't. But you're never going to catch fish at home, right? You have to go, and you have to try to learn how to catch fish and how to cast a fishing pole and how to put a worm on the hook and how to tie a hook to your line. And there's a lot of things you have to learn if you want to catch a fish.
Yeah.
And you have to do all of those things. And even if you do all of those things, maybe you'll catch a fish and maybe you won't.
Yeah.
But the whole point that, like, I was starting sharing this with my daughter, because we've been fishing together a lot. And I told her, eventually it gets to the point where you don't care if you catch fish because you're not there for fish.
Yeah.
Right. You're not there for fish.
That's what Lewis is talking about in Surprised by Joy. I mean, that's why the title,
Yeah.
You can only be surprised by it when you're not expecting, right? When you're not, when you're just out there because you love it.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you go fishing for fish, you're not going to be a fisherman very long.
Even the disciples they were
it's irritating.
Here all night, we're not catching anything.
Yeah, exactly. You're like
throw your nets on the other side.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Well, that was unexpected. That was totally unexpected. I read this quote somewhere. Okay, somebody turned the light off.
I thought that's what you were talking about. That the light.
Well, that was unexpected. No, that was unexpected. Well, the line actually. Well, this is I like these serendipities, But this line I read somewhere is that the only thing that's worth expecting is the unexpected. Something like this, because it's like if it's something that you can't expect, it can't really surprise you, really. And well, basically, if I wake up in the morning and I expect the unexpected, it's a paradox, because on the one hand, I cannot really expect anything, because I cannot expect that I'm going to catch a fish today. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't. But I expect that there will be something unexpected today.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And
I love it.
This is how I like to jump into these conversations with you guys, because I expect something.
Yeah.
But I never know what to expect. And every time there's something new,
unexpected.
Unexpected, and that's kind of the nature of the dialogue when it's not managed. When it's more micromanaged.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
When we follow the spirit, the lead of the spirit, and see where he takes us,
right?
And there's always something surprising. Like, this whole conversation about Job was very unexpected for me.
Yeah.
And then what you, Sherry, said about getting up and washing your face. Yeah, I'm in for such surprises very much.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I'm now, because of my Moby Dick reading, I'm going to bring in Jonah as well, where I love this little detail about the story of Jonah, where the whale that swallows Jonah was made from the beginning for Jonah, right? And you're just like, what? Like, come on, man! Like, like he made from the beginning of the world. He made this whale for Jonah, right? Like,
that's mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. As, by the way, if you want a taste of Moby Dick, if you haven't read Moby Dick, just read chapter 8 of Moby Dick. It's a sermon given on the book of Jonah and it's an account. So it's an account of an old preacher who used to be a sea captain giving a sermon on the book of Jonah to a bunch of guys who are used to being on a ship. And there's gravestones behind him of people who died in the ocean, died at sea. And there's a storm going, and he's giving there's a rainstorm outside, and he's giving this sermon on the book of Jonah. And it's the most beautiful writing I've ever read in my life.
Wow.
Like that chapter alone just stands alone as some of the most beautiful English literature I have ever read. Unbelievably moving.
Wow.
So good. So good.
I have to read it.
I mean, the writing itself and the sermon, it's just like all of it. It's just, it's just so powerful. And, but yeah, that element of the whale being made for Jonah. Yep.
I have a grandson named Jonah, and his mother was in labor for 3 days.
No.
Wow.
When he was born, they announced his name, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to Jonah. I'm like, you're kidding me. I said, honey, to my son, honey, he's never going to get away from God, eh?
Yeah.
That's right.
There's a whale out there swimming around waiting. It's got one job.
Yeah, I laughed because when I said, oh my God, are you serious? And Annie was just in labor for 3 days. And then I said to her, I'm not calling you a whale.
That's funny. Well, I'm sure she felt like one. Every pregnant woman I've been around, that's what they feel like.
That was really surprising to me, though, that that they would call him Jonah after that experience. It was pretty nail biting, actually, when it was going on.
Well, I have to go, guys. So good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Eugene.
That sounds good.
Missed you last week.
I enjoy talking with you. I enjoy when you come on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll have more to share about Soloviev next week.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah,
I'm very interested. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. See you.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks.
Eugene. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really pumped that you're reading Soloviev, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember Eugene mentioning it and kind of bumping into it. And then someone else recommended that particular book, and they said it's a really nice kind of entry point because it's short and it's a good translation. It's easy to read and it's a really great synthesis of philosophy with the Christian worldview. So I'm excited. It sounds great.
Yeah. He's a tough nut, like I wouldn't want to argue with him about anything.
Yeah.
He's got it sorted, like pretty darn good. I have to say.
Good.
Yeah, I was talking to my sister the other day, and I read her one of the hymns of paradise from Saint Ephrem.
Yeah.
And she said, would you do me a favor? Would you just read them on Grail Country, and then I could, So I think I'm going to start doing that. I have to.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Just short, just little bloop.
Yeah. Yeah.
One at a time.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. No, I love that idea.
People can listen to it and re-listen, and
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's a really good idea. I love that idea.
It'll also get me through the book, because otherwise, guess what? I will not read it.
Yeah.
Only because, well, there's two reasons. One is my hands are always busy.
Yeah.
So I just don't have time, right? And the other one is, as soon as I start reading, I fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I have to say, I generally try when I'm reading the scriptures, I generally try to stand up.
Oh, there you go.
And I got like a stand to put my reader stand to put my scriptures on, so that I can stand up and read, because they're intended to be heard.
Yeah, they are.
And so I read it out loud if I can.
Yeah, I like
when
to
I
read
read the
out
scriptures,
loud.
I read out loud. Yeah.
I actually read out loud a lot to myself because
Yeah.
I do way better with my comprehension if I'm hearing it as well
Mhm.
as saying it.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And sometimes, like I've been doing the Shakespeare course, so we're doing a play a week. So I'm
Whoa.
really determined to
Mm.
read them. And so I'll find a good audio version, but I'll also find a PDF, and then I just
Mhm.
sit and I read. And it's
Mhm.
usually a play, so you've got
Mhm.
characters, and yeah, that's really good.
By the way, if you can track it down, and I have a copy of it, but I have no idea how I would get it to you. Maybe I'll throw it on a thumb drive and send it to you. Sir Laurence Olivier, King Lear.
Oh,
Nothing better.
I'll see if I can find it.
Very good. Yeah,
We're
Sir
doing
Laurence
Macbeth.
Olivier playing King Lear at toward the end of his life, like he's in his 70s when he
Oh,
plays it.
wow.
Unbelievable. It's so powerful.
We did
So good. And
Pericles
he's
last.
doing it in front of a live audience. It's like it's a theatrical production. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
a movie,
Okay, cool.
it's a theatrical production, but it's
I
well
love
done.
it.
And oh man, so
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah.
Now,
So
my
Macbeth.
daughter just recommended to me, they watched the Patrick Stewart version of Macbeth that actually takes place during the American Civil War.
Oh,
So they do the whole story, but it's in the American Civol War. She said it's terrifying. She said the witches are nurses.
that makes it
She said they're
really.
playing all through the. She said they show up all through the
Yeah.
movie. She said it's really good. I haven't watched it, but
Mm.
she's just like, it was terrifying.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't believe they had 15-year-olds watch it. It was so scary.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's cool. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But she said it's pretty gory. So
Okay. Yeah.
warning to the audience. But yet no, Sir Laurence Olivier's King Lear is just
I did Shakespeare in high school, right?
Mhm.
And I was just not in a headspace for Shakespeare.
Yeah, most yeah.
I don't know why they waste. Like, don't you think it's a waste?
Yes and no. I mean,
Like, what do you think about
reading the scriptures to your kids is a waste too. It goes over their head. They don't know, right? But
that? Maybe.
it
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for how foundational Shakespeare is to our culture.
Yeah.
Even though we're not even familiar with it anymore, it's still, and then when you do get exposed to it and get into it more, I mean, there's a reason it's considered canon. I mean, I
Mhm.
like the idea of English canon. I think it's very tragic that postmodernism killed the
No,
idea of
for sure.
canon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, maybe it's just the way that it's been slid into the curriculum. It's like, okay, we got to cover this. Here it is. I didn't have any really good teachers, to be honest with you. I
mm,
remember I did Macbeth in grade um, 11 in the States, in Michigan. That was when I was living in Michigan.
mm,
And I think they were doing a play that I had already studied in Canada in high school.
oh yeah,
And so the teacher put me in the hallway at a desk right outside her door and gave me Macbeth to read and listen for like weeks.
wow,
And I thought she was going to discuss it with me and stuff, but no. Just had to
weird,
get through it, you know.
yeah,
So I'm looking forward to this version of Macbeth because I remember, I mean, I was out there, that's all I had to do, and I was reading it.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I have good news.
No.
I just did a quick search, and the Sir Laurence Olivier production of King Lear has been put on YouTube,
Cool.
and it is someone remastered it into 4K, and it is 2.5 hours long, and the whole thing is on YouTube, so you can search. And I just shared a link with you on Discord.
Oh, I was just going to say, send it to me on Discord.
Yeah, I sent you a link on Discord, and I'll put it in the I don't know if I can post it.
You can put it in the chat. You can
I'll put
put
it in the
links in the chat. Totally.
So this is Sir Laurence Olivier playing King Lear, and man, well, it's one thing to read King Lear when you're like 17 or 18 and you don't have any life experience or really understand what the hell they're talking about. It's a whole different thing to read King Lear when you have daughters and they're grown. It's a totally different experience. And King Lear, Sir Laurence Olivier,
the best, yeah.
he is King Lear, right? So it's unbelievable.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this Shakespeare course with Michael Martin.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Sounds good.
And he's got another one upcoming. If anybody's interested, you can check out his Substack, which is called The Druid Stares Back. The reason it's called that is because he was going to, I think he wrote an article about the droid stares back, and he was searching for it, and he misspelled droid, and he wrote druid, and he thought, oh, that's a perfect name for it.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's funny.
But anyway, his next course is William Blake. So, and I don't know if you noticed or not, but both books that you shared on screen tonight had Blake illustrations on the front covers.
Oh, I did not notice that. Wow.
The Job book.
Yeah.
That was the last work that Blake did, was the Book of Job.
Wow.
And the other book that you shared, Soloviev.
Soloviev, yeah.
That was also Blake illustration on there. So yeah, I'm really excited about William Blake because that guy, talk about a fool for Christ. Holy. Not that he was an Orthodox Christian, but yeah, he was definitely that. Well, I guess we could wrap it up. That was really great. Thank you for those 3 Theodores.
You're welcome. It was my joy, my pleasure.
Unless you've got anything else you wanted to share.
No, I'm good.
You're good?
I'm all right. Yeah. No, I think we've shared. The island, King Lear,
Island.
Fellowship. Job. Like what?
Good night, Joy.
We got a lot. We covered a lot. So
yeah, maybe throw a link to the island in the chat.
Oh yeah, okay, good idea.
And then it'll be there if anybody wants to watch it. Because, Jeremy recommended it to me, and it's Russian with subtitles. And at first I was like, oh, I'm probably, I don't watch movies very often, Jeremy, I have to admit.
Yeah. I'm
such a nerd. But anyway, I was like, oh, I'm going to fall asleep watching this. But it was riveting. It was so good. I was so glad I watched it.
Yeah. It can be one of those life-changing movies. It's
really gave me, good night. Good night, Joy.
Good night, Moon.
Night upside down.
Night upside down.
Thanks for joining us. Joining us.
Enjoying us.
Yeah.
No, this is that second link is the link to The Island, Russian movie with English subtitles. My priest said, if you want to understand Orthodoxy, this is the movie.
Yeah, and especially if you want to understand a holy fool.
Right. Yeah.
I think
this is the movie.
Yeah. Like it really, really, really gave me a clearer. I had a feeling about it because I can play that part a little bit. Not extreme, because like I said, I'm married.
Right.
So I have to act like a sane person.
Yeah.
But I can play that role a little bit, and I'm actually quite comfortable in that place. Yeah.
Well, I spent a lot of time there when I was younger.
Yeah.
But it was but yeah, mine was probably more attention getting. It wasn't out of humility. It was out of wanting to be noticed. So but as far as like complete disregard for what people around me thought.
Oh yeah, no. I was doing it in that role, like a waking up thing.
Oh yeah. I did some of that, but
yeah. Wakey. Come on.
exactly. Right. Yeah. There's tails to be wagged out here. Get to it.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank
Thanks
you
for your
everybody
time.
for
It's a
joining us.
pleasure. Thanks for everyone joining us.
We'll
We'll see you next week, God willing.
Yeah.